welcome back to Fast RC, everybody. So this video is going to be a review of the Arrma Quake 223S, and I got 5 key points that I want to discuss with you guys about this vehicle. So the way this video is going to be broken down, I'm going to go through an intro, a brief overview of the specs of the Arrma Quake, and then I'm going to talk about my 5 key takeaways, and you're going to want to stick around because there's going to be some things that I cover in this review that at least I haven't seen in the reviews that I've watched about the Quake so far. So you're going to get some extra information and things that I think haven't been touched on so much yet. And then after that, at the very end of the video, I'll give you my final thoughts and just overall sentiment on the Arrma Quake. So I urge you guys to stick around for the entire video because we're going to cover a lot in a little bit of time. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and get to the specs. All right, so real quick, we'll talk about the specs. So this is a 2-wheel drive monster truck from Arrma, and it is equipped with a brushless ESC motor combo, 4,000 kV motor to be exact, that is capable of doing 50 miles an hour plus with a 3S battery equipped, which makes this thing a rocket ship, especially for a 2-wheel drive monster truck. Another thing to talk about with the Quake, this is built on the same platform as the Arrma Gorgon. So if you're familiar with the Gorgon, you're going to be very familiar with the Quake itself. Some of the upgrades the Quake has versus the Gorgon are mainly going to be in the tires and the body, and of course the ESC motor combo. And then the servo has actually been upgraded to a Metal Gear servo. So that's just the real quick specs of the vehicle. Last thing I want to talk about here is just the price. So at $269.99, this is going to be a little bit more expensive than the Gorgon, but you're getting that brushless motor combo, tougher body, different color scheme, all that stuff, stability management control, that kind of thing. But I'm probably the only YouTube channel that's talking about how you can get that price discounted. If you go to Arrma Hobbies, you can use a coupon code. It's the only Arrma vehicle that allows you to use a coupon code. So go ahead and check that out. That's how I bought mine, for $15 off at $255, which is a heck of a deal. But anyways, that's all I got for the specs. Let's go ahead and get to the first key point that I want to talk to you guys about. Alright, so now that we got the formalities out of the way, I can get to start talking about the key points and the things that I really want to share with you guys, and some of my own perspectives about this vehicle and the certain things that I really care about, which you might care about too, which I think is why you're here in this video. So first up, let's talk about the servo. This Quake does come with an upgraded servo versus the Gorgon. And if looking at the spec sheet, it essentially, on paper, it looks like the same servo, has the same speed rating or the same power rating. I think it's like 83 inch-ounces of torque, which really isn't a lot. But to be honest, for this vehicle being a 2-wheel drive monster truck, it doesn't take a whole lot of power to move those front wheels. And what I can tell you is that the servo to me seems adequate enough. Like, it seems fast enough and strong enough that it really didn't bother me. But the main upgrade on this servo is now comes equipped with Metal Gear teeth. So that is just kind of a good thing to have when it comes to reliability standpoint. And this servo should hopefully stand up to some abuse for quite a while. I can tell you from firsthand experience with my Gorgon, that servo, the plastic gear servo, I don't know what happened to it, but that thing died within the first few months of having it. So not sure what happened, it just quit on me. But this servo on the Quake so far, the couple times that I've driven it, it's been fine. Seems more than adequate enough, and is not something I'm saying that you really have to go out and upgrade right away. I would just run it until it dies and then replace it at that point. Next thing to talk about is the servo savers. So if you've watched my channel before, if you're familiar with all the times I talk about the Gorgon and the Quake, or if you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. I appreciate it. But if you're new here, I talk a lot about the servo saver in the Gorgon and now the Quakes because they're essentially the same vehicle. What I have been able to find, and I'm going to put it up on the screen, this looks like the Quake actually does come with an upgraded servo saver, or at least a new version of the plastic servo saver that, according to Arrma, is HD. So there is a new part number for this servo saver on the Horizon Hobbies website, and that is the Arrma ARA 3396 part number. That is the new servo saver, and it's $1 more expensive than the old part number, which is the servo saver that came on the Gorgon, that part number being ARA 340192. So that is the direct mount servo saver. That's the old style. So keep that in mind. They're both on the Horizon Hobby website. If you see the servo saver, you probably want to get the more expensive one. It's $9.99. Anyways, taking a look at the picture that I took for you guys, so that when I first got my Quake, the very first thing before I even drove the truck, I put it right on the bench and pulled the servo saver out and did a comparison. And if you've ever changed a servo saver on the Gorgon or the Quake, how much of a pain in the butt that is, or it could be. I've done it enough now that it's not too bad. Maybe it takes me 20 minutes, but nonetheless, I did it for you guys. But what you can see is these servo savers are in fact different from each other. There's different markings, there's just different labelings. They functionally are the same. They have the same kind of parts, same dimensions and all that stuff. But what I can tell you guys just from the feel, to me, it felt like the new HD servo saver, the back plate felt a little bit stronger from what you can feel, or it felt like it would probably stand up to abuse a little bit better than the stock part or the first version from the Gorgon. Obviously in my picture, you could see that first servo saver, how it crapped down on me. So that spring came flying out of the back. And from what I could tell you, I remember when I did it, that happened when I bumped my Gorgon's tire on a fence post, but I really wasn't even going that fast. Like I didn't feel like it was enough of an impact to warrant blowing a servo saver like that. So hence why we talk about the servo saver being such a, an annoying part on the Gorgon. I do think now on the Quake it is upgraded, and hopefully, we'll have to see how it lasts over the next few months or years. But I have a feeling that this one's going to stand up to abuse quite a bit better. So I know I talked a lot about servo savers, but that was something that I really was hoping that they would upgrade, and shout out to Arrma for actually upgrading it. It's kind of an under the radar thing that really not a lot of people are talking about with this vehicle. But when those servo savers go out, they are kind of a pain to change. So thankfully now it looks like we do have a little bit better version that should stand up to some more abuse. Anyways, that's my first key takeaway. Let's go ahead and get to the next one. All right, key point number 2, we're going to talk about handling and the tires. So big thing here that I was curious about when I first got the truck was how much of a difference the new tires on the Quake were going to be compared to the Gorgon. The tires on the Quake now come equipped with foams inside of the tires, where the Gorgon, there was no foams, just air. I can, confirm that the handling on the Quake is just as good as the Gorgon in my personal opinion. Handles the same, the suspension setup is the same. My favorite thing about the handling on these trucks is just how well the body roll characteristics works and how quickly these trucks can turn on a dime. Like, you can flip these things, and because the way the tires are set up and the way the suspension set up and the weight distribution of the motor and the battery, this truck, from my testing, rarely traction rolls. Like, it's really hard to get this thing to roll, like traction roll and roll over on its shell, which is like my favorite thing. I think the thing I have the most fun doing with the Quake when I was out running it was doing donuts with it. And these tires, even though they give you more forward bite because of the different lug pattern now compared to the Gorgon, they still have a lot of give on a lateral motion, which allows you to slide and do donuts without traction rolling, which is really, really cool. So that's like a huge check mark in my opinion, and one of the main reasons why I love driving the Quake so much. And another part of that which contributes to the handling is the mid-motor mounting, which you don't really see a lot in a two-wheel drive vehicle, but it's such a huge component of making this truck handle the way that it does. Getting that, unlike the Stampede, getting that motor off of the back bumper and inside of the front axle does wonders for bringing that weight inside and distributing the weight out on a two-wheel drive monster truck a lot better. I also believe that's a main reason why this two-wheel drive Quake can actually do backflips on command compared to like a Stampede two-wheel drive. Also too, the battery placement I think plays a massive part in the weight distribution of this vehicle. That battery is mounted at the absolute lowest portion in the chassis, which is good for getting your weight lower down, or your center of gravity lower. Although I know the battery door is a bit tricky. But overall, this truck handles amazing. It handles as good as the Gorgon, except now you got double the power. So those are my key points on the handling section. Let's go ahead and get to the third key point. And key point number 3, I'm going to talk about the body. So when I first saw the picture, like the rumor picture right before the announcement the day before, which you can see the video where I talked about it, I would say I was like 50-50 on the body itself and the rocky bumpers on the front and on the back. I was kind of split. I was like, well, it kind of looks okay, whatever. But now I could tell you confidently I'm sold. I love it. I actually really like the rocky structures on the front and the back of this vehicle. And the main reason why I like it is because I think something that Arrma is doing, which a lot of us don't really talk about, I think they're kind of making like their own brand of like Monster Jam type vehicles, although they can't call it Monster Jam since that's a trademark, but they kind of are if you think about it. Like the Gorgon itself is kind of like a Monster Jam vehicle. It's like a Medusa themed snakes type of SUV monster truck. And then now you have the Quake, which is like an earthquake theme with the rocky formations on the front and rear bumpers. And they both have their own styles. And then what really sets it off for me is they both have driver names on the front sides or the front, doors, which is kind of like a Monster Jam thing. So like on the Gorgon, you have S.L. Jackson for Samuel Jackson. And then now on the Quake, you got Rick T. Scale, which is a nice like play on words for Richter scale. I really like it. And so my question for you guys, now that it's grown on me, if Arrma was to make another monster truck to go in their line of like quote unquote Monster Jam vehicles, now that we have the Gorgon and the Quake, what should they do next? And what should the driver's name be? I'm going to throw my idea out there, and I know this probably wouldn't happen because of trademarks and copyrights, but I would like to see a Terminator inspired monster truck, and I would like the driver to be John Connor. That would be my guess. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I would love to see what kind of names you guys come up with from like action movies or whatever you got. Anyways, I think it's really cool. The body's grown on me. One last thing that I'm going to talk about with the body is the Quake body compared to the Gorgon is quite a bit thicker. And I think that's because of the speeds and the overall abuse that this truck is going to take. They've actually beefed it up quite a bit. The Lexan itself is thicker. It feels thicker on the cab of the truck. You could like knock on it and feel the thickness. You could even look at it when looking at the graphics. You can almost see the thickness of the Lexan that it has. So that's definitely an upgrade. And then of course the front and rear bumpers, those plastic pieces are kind of built into the body. So if you're going to have an impact on the front or the rear, I'm definitely way more confident in the impacts that the Quake can take versus like the Gorgon. So that's all I want to talk about with the body in key point number 3. Let's go ahead and get to key point number 4. And takeaway number 4, I want to talk about parts compatibility between the Quake and the Gorgon. And one of my favorite things about having new models come out when they're built off of existing platforms is just having that extra part compatibility and allowing you to modify your existing Gorgon or your existing Quake with parts from the other vehicles. And so it's not even really just the Quake and the Gorgon, but it's like the Quake, the Gorgon, the Vortex, the Fury. You have like a big like range of parts that you can use and try to modify to make whatever type of vehicle you want. So I always love that kind of stuff. But one thing I'm going to talk about in this key point, specifically between the Quake and the Gorgon, is the body compatibility. So in a nutshell, and I'm going to show you some video clips here because they do fit technically. So I can put a Quake body on a Gorgon, I can put a Gorgon body on a Quake, which you'll see in the video clips. They do technically fit, although keep in mind that the body pin systems on each truck is different and they don't actually work with each other. So if you put the Gorgon body on top of a Quake, the pins that are in those shock towers or those body mount pins will not actually adhere or go through the post of the Gorgon body mounts because it's a different pin system. So if you're going to want to do that, you're going to want to swap out to different shock towers from the Gorgon. They're essentially the same part, they just have the different body pin systems. That'll cost you $11.49 usually from like A-Main or your local hobby shop. So it's a pretty cheap fix. If you have a Gorgon body with the body mounts, you just got to swap out the shock towers and then you can put the Gorgon body on top of the Quake. Now vice versa, if you have a Gorgon and you want to put the Quake body on your Gorgon, basically the same thing. You'll have to go out and buy the shock towers for the Quake, swap those out, get the new pins, and then you should be able to use the Quake body at that point. So just want to put it out there. I got clips and pictures for you guys to see it. It does technically fit. The heights of the body pins and everything works. Just you got to change shock towers. Also, one other quick note, if you ever watched my channel before, you know that I 3D printed a fan motor grill that looks like an engine block for my Gorgon. I can confirm that motor, that 3D printed motor fan grill does work on the Quake ever so barely. I think I maybe had like 5 or 6 millimeters of space from the top of my engine intake to the body of the Quake, but it does work. So I for sure am going to be 3D printing one and slapping one on my Quake. So that's all I got for takeaway number 4. Let's go ahead our key point number 4. Let's go ahead and get to number 5. All right, and key point number 5 that we need to talk about are, some of the cons of this vehicle. So it's not a perfect truck by any means, even though I know I've been hyping the crap out of this thing. There are a couple things on this truck that are a little bit annoying. And so we should keep those in mind. And that's what I'm going to talk about here in key point number 5. So I'd say the two most annoying things are going to be the obvious stuff. So number one, the battery compartment. So a lot of people complain about the battery compartment, and for good reason. I get it. You are trying to shove a battery into the chassis of this truck, and it's not the most amount of space in there, especially if you got to use like a battery connector or like a different connector adapter type deal. Things get cramped, and if you use a 3S battery, it can really get cramped. So keep that in mind. For me, it doesn't bother me. I think it's just going to depend on each user and your kind of goals with this truck. If you're looking to shove the biggest battery possible in there, you're probably going to have a hard time. There are some mods you can remove the cover plate kind of by the ESC and allow your battery connector to come out of that, and then you can connect the battery to the ESC, up top out of the chassis. That's one thing that you can do. It's one of the easiest mods out there. Or you can use smaller batteries. For me personally, I just use 2-cell batteries from SMC, and they're hard case batteries, and they seem to fit okay. I've been satisfied with using those, but that's just my own personal opinion. They are a pain. Also, too, when you get this truck, especially if you're new to it, you have to learn to how to finagle that battery compartment door to get it to lock in every single time. The best way that I've learned to do it is actually have the truck like flat on your workbench or on your table, and put the battery inside of the battery compartment door and then hinge it up into the body and just kind of push it up that way. I notice when I do that, it tends to go in solid every single time. So yeah, battery compartment door. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about, a couple other things, battery voltage cutoff on the ESC. So this is actually my first 223S vehicle that I've had from Arrma with that 223S system. And one of the complaints, normal or really common complaints I've seen on that system, is the low battery or the kind of high battery voltage cutoff, cutting your runtime short. I think I kind of experienced that on my 2S packs. I have 5,000 milliamp 2S packs, and I feel like usually I can get like close to half an hour runtime, 25 minutes. And I feel like on this Quake, I maybe got a little less than that, like 15 to 20 minutes. And I wasn't like hard on it all the time. I was maybe using 75% or 100% most of the time. So maybe there's a firmware update at some point or some type of update that will maybe lower that voltage a little bit so you can get a little bit more runtime out of your battery, which is a bit of a bummer. But for now, it's just one of those things. I'm just going to deal with it and bring more battery packs. So keep that in mind. If you do get this vehicle, it does kind of have a issue with cutting off cutting off your batteries a little bit short. Anyways, the last thing I want to talk about as far as a con is going to be if you do in fact have to change the servo and the servo saver, like I talked about in my previous segment, or the first key point, it is a bit of a pain. It's just the nature of the chassis and the way that thing is shoved up in there. You kind of have to use your fingers and kind of slide with the saver one side to the other and get it off the servo itself. It can be tough, but if you're like me and you've done it a bazillion times, you eventually get good at it. But I just wanted to put that out there. It is a pain to change. Usually on most monster trucks or short course trucks, it's usually not that big of a deal, especially on a Traxxas. But this particular Arrma and the way that it's designed, it's just an extra hassle more than it normally is. So that's all I got for my cons. Those are my big, probably the big downsides of this vehicle. But for me personally, I think it's just kind of a case-by-case thing. Sometimes that'll matter to you, and then in my case, it doesn't really matter to me. But anyways, that's all I got for key points. Let's go ahead and get to final thoughts. All right, and final thoughts. So what do I say? First of all, I want to say thank you. If whoever made it to final thoughts section, I really appreciate you guys, because this video went quite a bit longer than I intended it to go. But going through the key points, I started to realize I have a lot to say about this truck. I have a lot of experience with the Gorgon and now with the Quake. I've been playing with this truck, especially with the Gorgon, for solid the last year. And my final thoughts on the Quake, it's a fantastic truck. I absolutely love it. It would be, if I had somebody come and ask me, hey, I'm looking to get my first RC, I want to spend, $250 or something. I would definitely point them in the direction of the Quake, if not the Gorgon, if they wanted to spend less. There's something about this truck, and I think it's more than just the power, the speed. It's absolutely the handling. The handling's my favorite part. Whipping donuts and now doing wheelies at the Quake, it's just so much fun. But it's all of that. It's the reliability, this chassis is built like a rock. Like, this thing is solid. The transmission is solid. It comes with sealed differentials, brushless ready transmission, which I've never had a problem with. The body is rock solid. And you take all of that, now that they've upgraded the servo saver, they upgraded the servo, and then they added the pinion motor mesh system, so now your pinion doesn't back off your spur, nuking your spur gear. They basically took all the feedback on the Gorgon and all the worst things about it and literally upgraded every piece of that and turned it into the Quake. And now you have this fully spec'd out vehicle in the Quake for $269.99. I just think it's an absolutely fantastic deal. And if you somehow get it on a discount or get it on a sale, then it's an even better deal, in my personal opinion. That's just my own 2 cents. I know I'm like Quake fanboy out here, but I absolutely love this truck, and I'm going to continue to drive the crap out of this thing. So that's my 2 cents. It's a fantastic value. I would definitely recommend it to somebody if they're looking to get into the hobby. You're going to have tons of fun with it. And if anybody's watching this video and has already bought the Quake, let me know. What do you guys think about the Quake? I want to hear from you guys. Also too, every time you guys tell me you guys got a Quake, you guys never tell me which color you got. So tell me what color. I want to know what color you guys are picking. Did you get the green like me? Did you get the purple, which is what I initially wanted at first? Or did you get the red, which the red I feel like is getting slept on a little bit. That red one is nice. So I really want to hear from you guys. I hope you guys got some value out of this video. If you made it all the way to the end, I really, really appreciate you. If you're new here, consider subscribing, especially if you made it all the way to the end. I do these videos from time to time, but I also do RC Weekly and do pricing updates and try to save you guys some cash along the way in this expensive hobby that we're in. That's a mouthful, but anyways, I appreciate you guys being here. I hope you guys got something out of it, and I'll see you on the next episode. Take care, guys.